Hello, all my dear friends out in TV land. This is Senior Issues, etc., and I'm your host, Vita Verdon. Now, I just want to tell you, I read all your emails and your letters, and I've listened to all your phone calls, so I know what you really want to hear and you really want to see, and I go out and do that for you. I have a really interesting show for you, so hurry up, get your cup of coffee, come, sit down, have a paper and pencil. This one's for you. Now this young man, this good-looking young man I got sitting next to me, he doesn't look like he's old enough to be doing the job that he's doing, but he is, and he has the experience. He started in this line that he's involved with when he was 9 years old. Most people don't start until much later in life. And his name is Dr. Daniel Hubbard, and he is head of the Genealogical Society in Lake County, and we're going to find out what that all is. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Doctor.
you.
I know you've been on before, so I should say welcome back.
Right.
Because we have had you on periodically. Now, first of all, I know them out there. We're really good friends over the years. We've been doing the show for 16 years. So what they like to know is a little something about you. So you just look right into that camera and tell them a little bit about Dr. Hubbard and who you are and if you're married, if you're not married, you know, they want to know about you.
Okay. I was born and raised in Libertyville, Illinois, but ended up living in Europe for about 20 years. I'm married. I have 3 kids, Alice, Thomas, and Louise. Hello, everybody.
And your wife, what is her?
And my wife's name is Elizabeth.
A little wave to her.
Wave to Elizabeth. Hello. So the kids were all born in Sweden, but we ended up moving back to Libertyville because like it here, good schools, and now I am working as a professional genealogist in Libertyville.
And when did that come about? And how did it come about?
It came about in 2007. So, like you said in the intro, I've been interested in genealogy since I was 9 because of a couple of aunts, my father's sisters, who were very interested.
Well, a lot of people out there, they don't know what genealogy is.
Of course.
So that's what we'd like to know.
It's the study of your roots, your ancestors, your background, where you came from, where they came from, going back, you know, from decades to hundreds of years, if you're
tracking it all
back, learning how they connected to history, what they did. It's not, a lot of people think of just collecting names and dates, but it's collecting, it's getting the history and the interconnectedness.
It's getting the history and where the history has come from.
Right, exactly. So, you know,
well, now I did mention, because you did mention before the show, that most people don't start until later in life.
Right.
But you happen to start at 9. But I think that our audience would like to know how you got started at 9. That's an extremely young age.
I had a couple of aunts, my father's sisters, who were both very interested. They had sort of divided the family up. One did their mother's side, one did their father's side.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I'm a lot younger than most of my cousins, so when the family got together, I would be hanging out with the adults because the older cousins weren't so interested in me, right? So I would hear all the family stories and thought, well, that sounds interesting. And eventually I realized that some of those family stories weren't things that had been passed down. They were things that my aunts had figured out. And I got interested, how can you figure out stuff like that? And I also realized, well, they've divided up that part of the family, but my mother's side of the family, nobody was working on. So I could start working on that, and I had some, expert advice right there to help me get going.
You.
So yeah, I got really serious by the time I was 11.
Really?
Yep.
Now, at that time, of course, I'm 83, so I wasn't raised with computers. I didn't get into the computer until, very late in life, and I'm just in it, not really proficient at it. Were you on a computer at that age?
That was before there were computers existed, but they weren't really used for genealogy. It was
How did you do it? Through books?
books, writing letters to, say, the county clerk, asking if they had this record of such and such a birth or whatever, and looking at microfilm, because a lot of this stuff has been microfilmed, say at the National
So the
Archives.
microfilm is stored in different county seats along the way?
If it's county records, they can be there. If it's national records, it might be at the National Archives, and they have different branch offices. There's one in Chicago. And sometimes there would be things you'd borrow on interlibrary loan, and you put it in the microfilm reader and turn the crank. Or now these days, you push the button because it's probably motorized. And you go through it.
And so at what point did you realize, well, this is what I want to do as a profession?
That's sort of funny, because what I first did in my professional life was I'm a particle physicist. That's what I got my doctorate in.
A physicist.
A physicist. So, but it's research. Just like genealogy is research, and that's what my
there's a similarity.
Exactly, that passion for finding answers. And when we decided to move back I moved back to the U.S. When we moved, I just decided I'm going to start a professional genealogy business. So that's what I did, and that's how I earn my living now.
Well, when you started, did you just say, well, I decided I'm going to start this, and put a shingle out on your front door?
Pretty much, though these days the shingle on the front door is registering your business name and getting a website.
Oh,
so
it's done through technology in today's world.
Exactly. So I don't have a shingle outside my office, but I do have a website that helps people find me.
Well, I know years back, the first person I had on genealogy is probably about, I'd say 14 or 15 years, maybe about 14 years ago. Her name was Eileen, I think, something. She was a woman, and the society was very little.
Right.
At that
I think
time.
I know who you're talking about, yes.
Yeah.
She's head of our volunteers, if it's the woman I'm thinking of, yes. Yes.
And then it was very small, and it wasn't organized really as a business. It was something on a very tiny basis.
Right. Yeah, so if I switch hats from professional genealogist and put on my president of the society hat, now we have a reading room quite big with all sorts of information that people can come in and work on their ancestry.
Well, if you don't mind, what I'm going to do for our audience is I want to clarify something.
Right.
First of all, you are a professional genealogist.
Right.
Okay. So in the professional genealogy, does that mean you take on a client?
Right.
And you do the work, working
Right.
in conjunction with the client
Right.
to trace the roots?
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Now, separate from that, you are president of the Genealogical Society.
Right.
Okay. The Genealogical Society, now let's go into that a little bit deeper.
Right.
Because I know you have meetings and...
Exactly. We have a reading room in Vernon Hills downstairs in the Village Hall. I should say, since I just mentioned it's downstairs, it's handicapped accessible. So you can take the elevator down, no problem getting there. And we have books, both on Lake County, unusual things, old high school yearbooks. I found my own father in the old Libertyville High School yearbook. We have probate records for Lake County, but we also have things like if you're interested in where your ancestors came from in Ireland and how to trace that back, we have a section on Irish genealogy. We have a section on Germans. We have information on different parts of the U.S. So it's not just Lake County. It's a lot of places that people came from when they came to Lake County.
Well, I know, like living in the world of technology as we are today, I know people say this, well, there's Ancestry.com, and Ancestry, I just have to push one button and I'm going to get it all. But that's a fallacy.
Oh, that's a fallacy.
That's just a very thin not even scratching the surface.
Yeah, Ancestry is great. I use it all the time, but it's the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more you can find out.
So tracking one's roots, it can go into several different directions, and you could hit like big bumps in the road.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you could tell us some of the advantages, like of coming to meetings.
Right. I should mention we have meetings once a month, second Tuesday of the month in Mundelein. And we have a speaker every month who will tell you about some aspect of genealogy, how to use census records or how to use land records, or what's special about investigating, say, your Slovak ancestry. So there's different ethnic groups, different record types, different countries. They all have different angles you can take. And sometimes those bumps in the road come because you don't realize that there's a really good resource that happens to cover exactly your problem. So you can learn about that at our meetings, or just get to know other genealogists who have experience with what you're interested in and can trade tips with. So that's a great
that
thing.
makes the tracking a lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're with like-minded people.
Exactly.
That they need help, and they want to be helpful to you. So you're picking up tips all the time, because nobody has it all.
No, nobody has it all. It doesn't matter who you are. There's just so many different angles to look at things from, that someone who's an expert on German research might not know anything at all about Italian research. That's perfectly normal. So you have to, talk to the right people, use the right books, use the right resources.
Well, we're going to take this in a little bit deeper, but right now I'm going to Vita's Pearls of Wisdom. There's a few things I'd like to talk to you about today. For one thing, I want you all to go to the website and see the updating on things and see what people are saying about us, see where the show is seen, and you can see any of the past shows, and we have so many, there must be 35 to 40 shows online. And to go to the website, it's Senior Issues, etc., etc.org, and you'll come to the home page. Now on the home page will tell you all the different places that the show is seen, and the communities that they're seen in, the time that they're seen in. And then besides that, if you go down a little bit further, we have a link into the shows. And the shows are posted by the last show that was seen and the subject matter of the show. But you can scroll down and see the subject matter, and all the subject matter will be there, and you can pick out a show that from way back that we've seen, because we never take anything offline. And that will be a helpful tool for you, and then you could contact me. It shows how you can contact me, because I always like to hear your feedback, because if it wasn't for you out there, there would be no show. My crew and myself, we're community servants, and we're volunteering to bring you the information that we're digging out all the time, want you to have. Now, there's a couple tips I want to give for you. In this winter season, as seniors, you were always on guard. I've had a couple of bad falls, and I'm still walking with a walker, but thank God I'm healed, and I'm doing pretty good, and you're not going to get rid of me so fast. But if you are in need of something, I have mentioned this more than once because it's an important thing. You could buy a folding cane and then just have it in a little bag. And I know I'm not pushing Walgreens. You can go to a medical supply house, but I know Walgreens has them really cheap. I think they're like $20 or less at Walgreens, but the medical supply house have it, and they fold up real small. I was going to bring one today, and I just didn't want to carry it along with my walker. And that's one thing. And another thing is, in the winter, we have the doldrums. So, it's always good for a pick-me-up. So one of the pick-me-up, this is basically for women, but it's for men too, because you can go and get a hairstyle, you can get your hair dyed, and you can get a haircut. I go to these beauty schools. Now, in the area that we're covering, there is a beauty school out of College of Lake County. You call College of Lake County, and they will tell you the hours. and it's one building. It's the FAR building off campus, but just call CLC and they'll tell you where it is. I happen to live in Libertyville, Illinois, which is 30 miles northwest of the Chicago area, and there is a nice beauty school on Park Avenue. It's called Tricosi, Mario Tricosi. Remember him? I had him on the show. He's a real character. I just love him. And the Libertyville Tricosis, you can ask for, the school is cheap to start with, and then on Tuesday and Thursday, they give senior discounts. They almost pay you to come in. It's so cheap. And then I know we're seeing in the Evanston area. In the Evanston area, there's a great big beauty school there. They have a senior day, but I used to go to that one years back. I don't know when their senior day is. Called Pivot Point. So you can call there and find the days on that. And stay perked up, because staying perked up will keep you high and keep you out of those low down doldrums, because that's what we need to do. We need to perk ourselves up, and we need to perk each other up. Now we're going to get back to our roots. It's so interesting, isn't it? Aren't you glad you tuned in? So we're getting back to you, Doctor. Now, I know that in studying some of the cases, as I said to you, I mentioned that I happened to see the show on television, Roots, and it showed that the show I happened to see was O'Reilly, and it showed that he was a distant cousin to something. And you said that you ran into something not exactly the same, but a similarity.
Oh.
I think it's so interesting. I know that they like to hear it.
Okay. Yeah, the case, I did some work for a client, and it was in Quaker records. And Quakers, they don't have clergy like other denominations do. So when someone gets married, everybody who's in the congregation signs off on the marriage record. And I had looked at this years earlier on this particular marriage record because an ancestor of a client was one of the witnesses. And a couple of months ago, I thought, gosh, this record looks familiar, when I found a record for another client.
But
and
this was a new client now.
This was a new client, totally different research. It turns out that he was descended from the people who had gotten married. And I had already seen this record because of someone who was a witness. And it was a record that's 200 years old, 250 maybe. Just amazing how interconnected we all are.
Well, I'm so interested in history, and what I'm interested in is how people settle in a certain spot.
Right.
Do you think they settle because they have family there?
That's part of the reason you get a phenomenon we call chain migration. One family member or even one next door neighbor or friend moves to some place, and you get word back, hey, this is a nice place. And that one letter leads to more people and more people, so eventually you get an area that's settled like that. Sometimes it happens to be the area of the world that's open at the time. Sometimes, like in the example of the Quakers, Pennsylvania was a Quaker colony originally, so Quakers tended to go there. Sometimes people migrate to a place because it reminds them of home. That's the reason a lot of Germans ended up in Pennsylvania. It reminded them of home, and
the same kind of agriculture?
Hilly landscape, similar climate, because of course, if you're a farmer, where do you want to move to? Someplace where you understand the climate, the soil, all of that stuff, where all of that you've got in your head carries through.
Now, you had told me a story before the show about a man who was Croatian. That really tickled me.
Yeah, a client had asked me to investigate her grandfather, who was Austrian, and she knew some things about him. And as I traced him back in American records, his very German name, which it should be if he's Austrian, began to look a little bit different. And sometimes in genealogy, if the names aren't spelled right, we don't worry about it because there is no right spelling if you go back. But his name started to change. And in one census, he answered, or his wife perhaps answered, that the native language was Croatian, and the name looked a little Slavic. And as I went back, it turned out that he was telling the truth. He was from Austria, but he was from a place along the Austro-Hungarian border that had been settled by Croatians in the Middle Ages. And he was Croatian. And apparently, It was Austria. So the people who were higher up were the Austrians.
It was a class.
It was a class thing,
It's a
exactly.
class thing.
So it could be that when he got to America, he realized that he felt like being a member of this higher class. He probably spoke German perfectly, given where he was from. So he just decided to pass for Austrian. And that moved him up in the social ladder, at least in his own mind.
And this client that brought you this information, now this information was handed down in her family from generation?
Well, she had known her grandfather. She was sure he was Austrian, and she knew he spoke German.
She had known him.
Oh, yes. But she didn't know this part. Obviously, when he
She
was
didn't-
going through this process of sort of changing his ethnic identity, was long before she was born.
So he did like a whitewashing job to bring himself up to a higher class.
Yeah,
right?
people do things like that sometimes. So that's apparently what happened to him. I mean, we'll never know to 100%, but I do know that his ethnic identity shifted from Croatian to Austrian once he got to America.
Now, has this changed your perspective of your lineage?
A bit. I mean,
how has it changed now? You started when you were 9 years old.
Right. Well, you start to become quite accepting of things that people did. I mean, you go into it with one idea. People in the past did things this way, and this way. And it turns out, number one, you're probably wrong about all of those things. But it's not just people in the past. It's people in the past who lived in a certain area with a certain ethnicity, and everybody's different. They do things differently. They do things that we would think is weird, but when you do the research, you realize, oh, but this was perfectly normal for them. That's the way everyone did it.
Well, like when you started at 9, you were interested primarily in
my own
lineage,
ancestry.
Your own ancestry.
Right.
Has that widened your prospect to give you like a world vision of this?
Oh, yeah, because you see
the differentials in the cultures.
Yeah, you see different places in England, for example. My father's family and my mother's family both have a lot of English ancestry. They came to America very early, in the early 1600s, but they came from different places and behaved in totally different ways.
You know what I'd like our audience to know is look and tell them the website. Because if they go into the website will give information about the meetings, right?
Right. So I need to get out my cheat sheet to give you the web address because it's a bit complicated. It's www.rootsweb.com/ and then a little squiggly thing, a tilde, probably in the upper left of your keyboard, ILLCGS for Illinois Lake County Genealogical Society. And there we have information about our reading room, how you can find it. We have our phone number. We have announcements of our meetings that run from January through October. We have a big workshop with a speaker that we brought in from somewhere else in the country, a big national speaker every November. You can find out about that, find out about membership, find out what we've got in our reading room, find out about our quarterly, because we publish a quarterly 4 times a year.
Well, I like to make it easy for people to know, like they can come into the library.
Right.
Now, in the society, if they go through the library, if they bring their information and they'll get someone to assist them, not do it for them, right?
Exactly. The person who will be there is a volunteer who knows our collection. So if you
Your collection, let's go into that.
Right.
What do you mean by collection?
Okay, we've a lot
by
of
ethnicity?
We've got a lot of Lake County resources and a lot of Illinois resources, but we've also got resources to cover lots of other places in the United States, especially the Northeast and the Midwest, because that's where people tend to come from, but from all over, and different ethnicities, so Irish, German, I think we've got some Swedish stuff too. So people can come in, they can ask, Point
they come
me
in-
to what I'm interested in, basically.
They come in free. They don't pay any money.
Totally free.
Okay.
We encourage membership, on the other hand,
You
but it's
encourage
totally
membership, but they can come in, and they're
Totally free.
welcome to come in
Oh,
free.
yes, very
and where is
welcome.
that located?
free. It is in Vernon Hills, Illinois, downstairs in the Village Hall.
Okay.
We are open from 9 in the morning to 4:45 on business days, so
Okay.
Monday through Friday when it's not a major holiday.
And nobody bites down there.
Nobody bites. They're
Nobody
all very,
hits.
Nope. We're all very friendly. There's no such thing as a stupid question because everybody started out at some point, and you have to ask questions. So people shouldn't be scared to come in. And the person who's there, they may not be an expert in exactly what you want, but they can tell you how to get started in genealogy. They can tell you where to look in the collection, help you understand what we've got, and how to find things in the different reference materials. And
So if they want to go that direction. Now, on the other hand, if a person wants to have it completely done, then they contact you personally.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of work that I do professionally.
And now, how do they contact you personally? Through the website? Will your name be on the website?
I am there under researchers.
Under researchers, is that on the
On the
first-
main page, I'm trying to picture it. There is a link for researchers, and my link is
Okay, so would
information's
that
there.
be on the home page, on the front page?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so on the home page, you're listed as president of the Genealogical Society and also research.
Yeah,
Under
yeah,
research.
under
So
researchers.
that would be the link.
Right, right.
And under that link would be the information how to personally contact you.
Right.
Okay, so we have two different divisions.
Right, right.
Now, say a person is just curious,
Mm-hmm.
then would you advise that they go to the library or come to a meeting?
Either. I mean, they're both excellent things to do, to meet other
And
genealogists.
when are the meetings?
The meetings are the second Tuesday of the month from January through October,
Okay.
and they start at 7 o'clock.
And
though we-
where is the meeting located?
They are in the Mundelein Park District office on Midlothian Road in Mundelein.
On Midlothian Road in Mundelein.
Right.
The second Tuesday. But if they go into the website, will this information be shown
Yes,
on the
yes,
website?
Yes, and usually we announce who's speaking a month or two in advance so you can see what the topic is and who's giving the talk.
Well, give us an example, like of a topic that would be talked about at one of the meetings.
Well, okay, since I speak professionally, one of the first thing that comes to mind is I do a lot of Swedish research. So I gave a talk called "Will the Real Sven Larsson Please Stand Up?" The old TV show, because one of the problems, especially with Scandinavian genealogy, is everybody had the same name. Sven Larsson would be the son of a man named Lars, who would have a totally different patronymic name. So there are only a few names. And so you see that, and you try to search for Sven Larsson, and you're going to find 10,000 people. What do? It's a very different technique. So that's what I tried to help people with. In that
Okay,
talk.
so now, where does your passion lie? You just look in that camera.
Right. I love.
What are you getting back out of all
Right.
this?
I love to help people solve family mysteries and connect with little bits of history that they might not be aware of otherwise. Because there's all sorts of these little fascinating things in everybody's ancestries, and most people don't know about them.
Oh, I hate to cut you, but when you come to the end of your rope, you tie a knot and hang on. You know why? The best is yet to come. We want you to go out and find out about yourself. God bless you. We love you. Catch the spirit.